The nursery business suits rural as well as urban environment. Entrepreneurs are attracted to this business because in spite of requiring relatively less space, less effort and lower investment, it yields high returns. Since it requires manpower for operations like filling bags with soil, making grafts, transplanting, watering, etc., this business has also a high potential for generating employment.
Production of rooted cuttings. When a twig of a plant is rooted to produce a sapling, it is called a rooted cutting. In this case, if the mother plant has already started to flower, the rooted cutting too starts to flower from the first year itself. In order to accelerate the process of rooting, the basal part of the cutting is treated before planting with rooting hormones called indole butyric acid or IBA and naphthalene acetic acid or NAA. Both the hormones should be used at a concentration of 4000 parts per million or ppm. Of the two, NAA is commercially available in a liquid form, whereas IBA is available as a powder, which is, however, insoluble in water. Therefore, IBA is initially dissolved in a dilute solution of caustic soda or caustic potash before mixing it with water. However, IBA is costly and as an aqueous solution, it has a limited shelf life. Therefore, prepare the IBA solution just before using it and in limited quantity. Dissolve 5 grams of potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide in 100 milliliters of water. Keep the solution in a bottle and label it as 5% potassium or sodium hydroxide. Then pour 25 milliliters of water into a glass or plastic container. Mark the water level like this on the outer surface of the container and throw away the water. Weigh 100 milligrams of IBA with the help of a chemical balance and place it into the marked container. Add to it the 5% hydroxide solution, drop by drop, under constant stirring. After the IBA has completely dissolved, fill the container with water up to the 25 milliliter mark. Stir the solution well. If IBA is not available, use the NAA solution available in the market. Before using it, dilute it 10 times with water by adding 9 measures of water to 1 measure of NAA. Selection of shoot cuttings. For good rooting, select shoot cuttings from green, healthy and vigorously growing plants. Reject cuttings from decaying, diseased, leafless or dormant plants. If the cuttings are to be transported over long distances, or if they are not to be used immediately, wrap them up in a wet piece of gunny cloth and keep the bundle wet by splashing water over it once every 2 hours. The cuttings prepared for planting should be about 15 centimeters long. Remove all its leaves except for the topmost pair. If these leaves are very long, cut them in half. Before planting the cuttings, dip their basal portion in the hormonal solution for about 10 seconds. For successful rooting, the cutting must remain in a humid environment. It is also necessary for the basal portion to receive sufficient oxygen. Therefore, plant the cuttings into sand and not into soil. Appropriate Rural Technology Institute has developed a low-cost, high-humidity chamber for maintaining high humidity around the cuttings. The rooting is much better if such a chamber is used. High humidity chamber. The chamber is constructed in a shaded area having smooth but slightly sloping ground. After leveling the ground properly, spread a black 200 gauge plastic film on the ground. The film should be 120 centimeters across and as long as the planned high humidity chamber. Place bricks in this manner on all the four borders of the plastic film. Fill the enclosed space with fine sand. Water the bed till water starts flowing out of it. Erect arches of galvanized steel wire over the bed. Plant the hormonally treated cuttings into the sand bed. Cover the arched structure completely with a sufficiently large piece of transparent colorless plastic film. Place bricks on the edges of the plastic film where it touches the ground. Within about half an hour, water vapor would condense in the form of small droplets on the internal surface of the plastic film. This is indicative of 100% humidity in the chamber. Cuttings of certain species cannot withstand such high humidity, and they start to rot. In such cases, create a small opening between the plastic film and the ground by placing bricks between them in this manner. This will allow external dry air to enter the chamber to reduce the humidity within it. If the high humidity chamber is exposed to direct sunlight, it gets heated up and the twigs planted in it are killed. Therefore, either select a shady place for installing the high humidity chamber or create artificial shade by using a shade netting which cuts off 50% light. Water the sand bed in the high humidity chamber once every 3 days. The twigs start rooting within about 6 weeks. To check the root development, scoop out the sand along with the cutting by using 3 fingers of your hand like this. Dip the hand along with the sand and the cutting and shake it like this. the sand will separate itself from the roots like this. Never pull out a cutting from the sand. Transplant the rooted cutting into a plastic bag of appropriate size, taking into consideration the future growth of the sapling. Puncture the bag like this so as to ensure proper drainage of water. Fill about 3/4 of the bag with standard soil compost mixture. Hold the cutting in such a way that its roots touch the soil in the bag. Fill the remaining part of the bag with soil. Water the bag well. Place it again into the high humidity chamber. After 8 days, start exposing the bags to external air by lifting the plastic cover of the high humidity chamber in this manner. Widen the opening every day so that after about 8 days, the plastic cover can be removed completely. Remove the plants from the high humidity chamber and keep them in a shady place. The high humidity chamber increases the success rate not only in the process of rooting, but also in the case of grafts of all kinds. Nurserymen need compost every day. For fast composting, the raw material, which can be in the form of agro waste, leaf litter, sugarcane trash, coconut leaves, branches and twigs of trees, etc., should be chopped into small pieces. The compost is produced in an above-ground tank. Produced with the help of bricks laid on a plastic sheet of appropriate size. When the tank is ready, prepare a slurry by stirring 1 kilogram cattle dung, 50 grams superphosphate, 40 grams urea, 1 gram ferrous sulfate and 0.1 gram zinc sulfate in 10 liters of water. Soak the chopped up biomass in this slurry. Fill the tank with it. Cover the tank with a black plastic film to prevent the biomass from drying out. Sprinkle water over the biomass once every 2 to 3 days and stir it up so that the composting is done uniformly. The biomass is converted into compost within 2 to 2.5 months. The number and size of the tanks would depend upon the quantity of compost required by a nursery. use of artificial light. Daily exposure of plants for about half an hour after sunset to certain types of light can modulate their shape and size. In order to produce bushy, multiple-branched and attractive plants, expose the lower side of the plants to light from white fluorescent tubes. On the other hand, artificial light filtered through a layer of green leaves would produce tall plants without side branches. Light in this case is produced by using a carton fitted with an incandescent bulb. Cut a hole into its lower side, cover the hole with green leaves. Hang the carton above the plant. Switch the light on after sunset and leave it on for about half an hour. Many plants shed their leaves in winter. This can be prevented by exposing them every day for 2 additional hours after sunset to fluorescent light. Selling seedlings of vegetables and other seasonal crops has not only a very large business potential, it also ensures year-round sales. Seeds of hybrid varieties of vegetables are very costly. Farmers are afraid to buy such costly seed because if they fail to germinate, they lose a lot of money. Farmers can avoid this risk by buying seedlings, which they just transplant. Such seedlings are produced on raised beds. Select a sunny spot. Spread a plastic film on the ground. Place bricks on its borders and fill the enclosed space with a sand-soil mixture. Plant the seed into furrows made in this bed in regular rows. Apply complex granular chemical fertilizer in the space between the rows using 5 grams nitrogen and 2.5 grams phosphate per square meter. Cover the space between the rows with strips of black plastic film. Irrigate the bed regularly with a rose can. As vegetable seedlings are planted very closely, they are not produced individually in plastic bags, but just uprooted and sold in bunches of 100 each. They are called naked seedlings because their roots are exposed. During transportation, they are wrapped up in a wet gunny cloth, which is kept soaking wet till the sale. Seedlings of watermelon, red pumpkin and other vines are planted at a relatively wide spacing. They can be produced and sold in plastic bags. The business of selling disease-free sugarcane seedlings is very paying. The seedlings are made from single node cuttings of sugarcane. The sugarcane for producing these seedlings must come from a healthy seed plot. The nodes with eye buds are cut like this and soaked for some time in a solution containing a fungicide and a rooting hormone. After this treatment, the nodes are planted on a raised bed. Irrigate the bed as usual. The eye buds germinate after a few days. Remove the seedlings when they are about 15 centimeters tall. Take a plastic bag, punch a hole into it and fill it up to 1/4 of its height with a sand soil compost mixture. Place the seedling into this bag like this. Fill the bag with soil in this manner. Water the bag and place it in a shady place. Because sugarcane is an annual plant, customers would buy them every year. The area under cultivation of pigeon pea and cotton is also very large. Normally, these plants are planted in the beginning of the rainy season, but you can produce seedlings of these crops prior to the beginning of monsoon and transplant them into the field after the monsoon has started. This allows the plants to utilize the rainy season fully, which results in higher yield. Considering the large areas covered by seasonal crops like sugarcane, cotton and pigeon pea, the business of producing and selling seedlings of seasonal crops has the potential of offering self-employment to a very large number of rural youth.